out there who absolutely love word games, I have something unique to see. Hi, I'm Julie Mackenzie Archer, President of Platypus Games, co-creator of the award-winning game Jumbulaya, the rearranging, ever-changing word jumble game. Let me just caution all of you word junkies out there right now. If you're one of those people like me who gets hooked on word games, Jumbulaya will definitely feed your addiction. In this game, you will think on multiple levels by building new words each turn, rearranging and adding tiles, claiming and defending your lines, strategizing how to steal letters, all while simultaneously searching for a Jumbulaya, a sequential 7, 8, or 9 tile word found vertically on the board. Let's take a look inside the game box, shall we? Here we have the game board with plastic grid overlay. The plastic grid ensures that the tiles don't slide around during all the action. Words in this game change constantly. We have one nice red bag for all the 100 letter tiles. We've got single letters and tiles with letter combinations on them. There are 4 tile racks in different colors. Each player will use a rack for his or her individual tiles. There are also sets of 9 line markers. These will be used to mark the lines claimed by each player. And of course, one set of instructions. We encourage everyone to read the instructions before playing the game. That's it for the contents of the box. Now let's move on to game setup. Setup is really easy. First, each player chooses a color. I always choose red, so I'll take the red tile rack and red line markers and set them in front of me. You can be blue. Jumbulaya is a game made for 2 to 4 players, so if you're playing with 2 people, just put the other markers and unused tile racks back in the box. Now, you can either set the box aside and start to play, or use it to elevate the board a little and keep everything together. It's up to you. You'll see on the board, here running down the middle, 3 gold squares in the middle of each of the 9 lines, right down the center of the board. These squares indicate where to place the 27 initial random tiles. So to set up our game of Jumbulaya, all we do is reach into the tile bag, grab 27 tiles, and put them randomly on the board on those spaces. It's important to note that after this initial setup, the gold spaces don't mean anything. Once the initial 27 tiles are on their proper spaces, it's time for the players to draw their tiles. So now we're ready to play Jumbulaya. The object of the game is to build longer and longer words each turn to earn the most points. There are lots of ways to build longer and longer words. You can add tiles, trade tiles, shuffle them around, but you can only work with tiles on one line on the board per turn. Let's take a closer look. Now it's time to fire up your brain. As you can see, there are 9 lines from which to choose. Throughout the game, a player may rearrange any line on the board as long as a new word is created each play. Each player can play a maximum of 2 tiles each turn, or just 1 or none. Let me explain. The goal each turn is to create a new word and claim the line on which it sits. The longer the words you build, the more points you get, and the more difficult you make it for your opponents to take words away from you. Let's move ahead with this game and see what the board might look like after a bit of play. You can see now that the board has changed quite a lot. All the lines are claimed and there are several 4, 5, and 6 tile words on the board. Once all the lines are initially claimed, the most advantageous moves are to steal opponents' lines and reclaim the lines they steal from you. For example, I own all of the lines with the red markers next to them, and my opponent owns the blue lines. But remember, you can rearrange any line you want on your turn. So you may choose to grow a line that you already own. Adding tiles to a word also increases the point value of that word, but we'll get to scoring in a minute. Let's talk about how the game ends. So how do you end a Jumbulaya game? Well, there's actually more than one way. The most common way, the most fun way, is for a player to find a Jumbulaya, hence the name. A Jumbulaya is a 7, 8, or 9 tile word running vertically in sequential order from the top of the board to the bottom. 2 conditions must be met before a Jumbulaya can be called. First, all lines on the board must be claimed, and there must be at least one word on the board that is 7 or more tiles in length. Once those 2 criteria have been met, it's at this point that any player at any time may call a Jumbulaya and end the game. Calling a Jumbulaya and ending the game gives you Jumbulaya points that might help you win, but finding a Jumbulaya is not an automatic victory. Scores are tallied using a point system that I'll describe later. Other ways to end the game. A Jumbulaya game also ends if a player builds a word that reaches 10 tiles in length. Watch here as stained becomes strained, and then 10 tile restrained. The third way to win occurs when one player manages to claim all 9 lines on the board. This is rare. However, if a player repeatedly chooses to work on his or her own line for too long, or repeatedly dumps tiles or passes his or her turn, allowing an opponent to steal more and more lines, it can happen. Let's look more closely though at the most common and the most fun way to end the game, finding a jambalaya. As you can see, all the lines are claimed by the markers, and we just turned the word stain into stained. So that's 7 tiles long. Now, at this point in the game, any player could call a jambalaya. I'm looking. I see one! Jambalaya! Staples. S-T-A-P-L-E-S. Although the player who finds a jambalaya does get points for the discovery, it does not mean an automatic victory. What it does mean is that the game is over and it's time to tally up the points. For each word claimed by a player, he or she earns the following points. A 3, 4, 5, or 6 tile word earns you those same number of points, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you've built longer words, such as a word with 7 tiles or 8 tiles or 9 tiles, you're going to get 10, 12, or 15 points. And as we mentioned earlier, if you build a 10 tile word, the game is also over, and that's worth 20 points. Jambalayas are scored in the same way. 7 tile jambalaya, 10 points. 8 tile jambalaya, 12 points. 9 tile jambalaya, 15 points. Oftentimes, victory does hinge on finding that jambalaya, but it all depends on the words on the board. Ultimately, the player who earns the most points wins the game. So, there you have it. That's Jumbulaya, the rearranging, ever-changing word jumble game. We hope you got a little taste today from our explanation, but be warned, once you start playing, you will not be able to stop. You will crave Jumbulaya. We're Platypus Games. Thanks, and have fun.